Welcome to the Big Byte Academy Online. Today I want to talk about strategic and effective materials planning. A relatively new tool, developed by SAP Consulting, provides the necessary functionality to run your materials planning on autopilot. That tool is called the MRP Monitor. SAP Consulting is the service organization of SAP, and its efforts around these add-on tools are spearheaded by Mark Hoppe, best-selling author and SAP supply chain expert. bigbyte Software Systems has partnered with Mark's organization to bring the add-on tools to the US. These tools are developed within the SAP namespace, and therefore do not require any integration or interfaces. The implementation is done by way of transports and requires minimal effort. As always, you can get in touch with me by email and through our website. You may also follow my blog in order to get more information. What constitutes effective materials planning? In my opinion, it is all about balance. The balance between a good service level and minimal inventory cost. Please note that I say inventory cost. I do not say minimal inventory, since minimal inventory means stockouts and failed availability checks. We therefore need to keep a certain inventory level at the minimum cost, to support enough availability. But not as much availability, as to blow up our inventory cost. To keep that balance is the job of our materials planner. In standard SAP, materials planning is supported by the exception monitors in MD06 and MD07. These are the transactions with which you can manage your materials portfolio. There are tools and functions to keep the data clean, to convert a plan into a schedule, to adjust quantities and lead times, and to expedite, receive and deliver to orders. All of this is supported by exception messages, which are generated when the demand is not in balance with the supply. These are all tasks of a tactical materials planner, but there are things a materials planner should do, which are more of a strategic nature. You should analyze your materials for various criteria on a periodic basis. The world is changing all the time, and so does the criteria by which your materials are ordered, consumed, and delivered. After the analysis, materials need to be segmented and categorized. A material with consistent consumption, high value, a long lead time and frequent usage, should be categorized differently than a slow mover with very low value that is marked for deletion. Once the segmentation is finished, you will have to assign the predefined policy where it fits, so that MRP can generate supply, for the right material, at the right time, in the right quantity, for the right place. That is strategic materials planning and needs to be repeated on a regular basis. So how are our materials planners supposed to do that? For their entire portfolio? All the time? Very often there is low quality of the master data, not to speak of the complex structures and the difficulty to line up the perfect policy. The sheer quantity of master data records and maintenance tasks, combined with very difficult interdependencies between the individual settings, and the fact that in order to be effective, one should analyze parts on a periodic basis, makes it impossible to maintain all of this manually. And if you set everything up in a one-size-fits-all fashion, then you have a few optimal setups, and many suboptimal ones. Even if you set up all the materials optimally once, which is usually the case if you engage a consulting company for an optimization project, then some of your materials will be out of whack a few weeks later, and the rest of them a few weeks after that. What should be made to stock today, could require make-to-order production tomorrow, and what produced fantastic results with a consumption-based planning strategy yesterday, might blow up your inventory next week. Because the demand fell off and became irregular, or the lead time increased twofold because the buyer found a less expensive supplier. Therefore we have to automate. We have to find a way to automate policy setting, keep our portfolio up to date when it comes to master data setup, and we have to analyze periodically, without too much effort. The solution to the problem is the MRP Monitor by SAP Consulting. The team around Hoppe conceived of some tools that are missing in standard SAP, and provides these tools to the new role of the strategic materials planner. The Strategic Materials Planner is then running various analysis across all portfolios every months, every 3 months, every week, or whichever works best. Out of the analysis result, a matrix with classified groups of materials, the Strategic Materials Planner, then saves every material with a new policy, automatically, as a mass update. As that is done periodically, the tactical material planners are still doing their daily exception monitoring and management. However, that basis for exception monitoring is now one that is up to date, clean and effective. Let's have a closer look. This is SAP Consulting's portfolio of add-on tools, monitors and simulators. In this course we want to just focus on the MRP Monitor, however the Safety Stock Simulator and the Lot Size Simulator are closely integrated and inside the MRP Monitor. Especially the Lot Size Simulator I deem an incredibly effective and cost-saving tool, but more about that in a separate class. The MRP Monitor, in its simplest sense, runs up to 6 analysis. You can classify materials according to consumption value as A, B or C, and even D items. Next we have our XYZ analysis, which everywhere I look, is either done in Excel, or with extreme effort, in the info structures of the LIS. The XYZ analysis produces a coefficient of variation and lets us classify the regular consuming parts as X, and the irregulars as Z. We can even classify the no-movers as N. The LMN analysis allows you to classify materials according to their volume, if you maintain the according fields in the basic data 1 screen. UVW classifies by standard price, and EFG allows you to do a lead time classification, which is also very, very helpful in policy setting. Lastly, the analysis LROD classifies according to product life cycle, and therefore separates the new materials from the slow movers, from the deleted, and from the normal materials. Using these analysis, you can now group every material according to 6 classifications. In the monitor's results screen, you select 2 at a time, and for every segment you run a policy update. A policy update means that we update data settings, like MRP type, strategy, lot size procedure, or a forecast method, and update these automatically, right out of the monitor. Let's get onto the system. Typing the transaction code, and the selection screen of the MRP monitor comes up. Let's look at the period of analysis first. We can look at any different ways on how to set the period that we want to analyze, but for now I simply want to look at the past 12 months, starting from today. Then, we need to identify the data source. Other than in standard SAP, we have multiple choices. This is one of the very exciting features about the MRP Monitor and the other add-on tools. We can customize and use our own table of data. Another add-on provided by SAP Consulting is the Material Document Aggregation tool. The Material Document Aggregation combines consumption data from a range of material documents to provide figures that can be analyzed. All material documents are read that are deemed relevant for the analysis. The program calculates stock, dead stock, and consumption, and writes this data to tables. This information is then used as the database for the MRP Monitor. Using the consumption data, the MRP Monitor can calculate standard and reference analyses. After you ran the MDA, you can use it here for your analysis, instead of an info structure or the standard material consumption table MFR, which does not allow you to select, or deselect, certain movements. In some cases you want, for example, to exclude transfer postings from the analysis. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we do not use the customized consumption table, but go with standard material consumption table MVER, and total consumption, as a basis and data source for our analysis. We are now in the Strategy 1 tab. We deselect 3 cases, so that our classification does not contain materials that do not have any usage during our period, does not contain materials with negative usage, and does not contain materials that are flagged for deletion. We could also identify what criteria defines a new material. Further down, we can select or deselect the type of classification our MRP monitor should include. We select all 6, and we can now customize the various strategies that are to be used for each classification. As for the ABC analysis, we classify by usage value in %, and we leave the limits intact at 70, 20 and 10%. Further down we can customize the EFG, the LMN, and the UVW analysis. And lastly our XYZ analysis. Here we go by coefficient of variation and define the limits to the following. A coefficient of smaller than 0.5 means steady consumption and will be classified as an X item. All items with a coefficient between 0.5 and 1.5 will be classified as Y items. And everything bigger than 1.5, with very irregular consumption, is classified as Z. After executing, we wait for the result. Here is the result. We see a window with the various classes, a menu from which we can change the display, a window with various graphics, and a window with the list of materials belonging to a class. Within the classification window, we currently see a classification by ABC, and by XYZ. But we can change that, and switch over to an EFG classification, which we will display vertically. Now you can see a matrix XYZ over EFG, which is the lead time classification. If we want to list all materials that have a medium lead time lengths, and a medium consistency in consumption, we can select the segment Y, F. There are 72 materials categorized in that segment, and a double click brings these 72 materials into the lower window. Please note that all other class identifications are visible and stored in the MMR. I am now selecting all 72 materials within the segment Y, F, and click on the button Material Master Update. This will bring up a window with the 3 MRP screens and its fields from the Material Master record. Here is where we set the policy for all Y, F items. And the policy is a PD. With lot size procedure MB. Special procurement indicator 20. A coverage profile 001. And planning strategy group 40. There are many more things you can achieve with the MRP monitor. Lot size simulation, safety stock simulation, policy maintenance and inventory controlling, to just name a few. I hope this was giving you enough information, so that you get a feel about what these monitors can do for you. However, effective materials planning requires much more than just the use of a tool like the MRP monitor. It requires a concerted effort to sustainably improve and optimize all facets of your supply chain. The master data must be set up correctly so that it supports effective procedures that are executed by knowledgeable and educated staff. bigbyte, an SAP Operations Management Optimization company, and US reseller for SAP Consulting, has the tools and experience to help you achieve supply chain excellence. If you run SAP for your supply chain, there was at some point in time an implementation going on, constrained by budget, timing, resources and by what your advisors knew about functionality in the system. You went live at some point and chances are that you ran with the setup for a while. There might have been functionality being added, but did you ever completely redo customizing based on what you know today? If you kept going with the original setup, most likely there were some patches introduced to fix perceived glitches and white spots in standard SAP. Spreadsheets were used, data started to become outdated, workarounds were developed, and some of your users may have become frustrated with the process and gave up using the system. You started pulling yourself outside of SAP, into the world of ZAP. bigbyte has specialized and focused its business around moving companies back into standard SAP, and to optimize master data setup and processes at the same time. Our approach is geared towards an effort to hand over all the tools necessary to sustainably maintain an optimum setup, long after we are gone. In a first step, we help you clean your master data, outdated elements, and replace your unnecessary workarounds with standard functionality, available within SAP ERP. Step 2 deals with the optimization of your processes. Standard operating procedures, e-learning and thorough education and working sessions, guarantee a steep learning curve and fast results. The areas of sales and operations planning, forecasting, production scheduling, materials planning, inventory controlling and purchasing are all part of the effort. And lastly, we introduce lean automation, agility and speed into your supply chain, using add-on tools, best practices and a KPI framework that introduces excellence on top of a sound foundation.